Hello, I am Roy Harriman with Ministry Pacific, and I'm joined today by Jeff Schweig, president of Capital LiveScan in Sacramento, California. Jeff, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely my pleasure.
So our topic today, it's serious, it's challenging, but it's absolutely essential for churches and nonprofit organizations to provide leadership on this topic. And our subject then is preventing sexual misconduct. Jeff is uniquely qualified to discuss this subject because he spent 2 decades in law enforcement, including 5 years investigating sex crimes. Today, his organization helps churches and nonprofits protect their youth and their members through screening. So, Jeff, most of us are aware of many of the highly publicized sexual misconduct scandals that have hit churches and nonprofits. For example, not trying to pick on anyone, but the many lawsuits that have been filed against the Roman Catholic Church in the last 2 years, many high-level people, entertainers, celebrities, business people have been caught up in it. So we know about those. But when you get down to the grassroots, to churches, sports leagues, how pervasive is the problem there?
So fortunately, it's not as bad as it seems, but these are kind of those events that any sexual misconduct is big. It's life changing, it's life damaging. It not only affects the victim, but their family and the organization. I always have this saying that I have 7 kids, by the way. So I've been a part of all this for years. For 30 years, I've coached PTA, anything. So I don't just have this mindset, everything is from the side of law enforcement. I've lived a life. And so, one of the things I always said, that anybody who wants to spend more time with my kid than I do, I'm a little bit suspect of, especially as they get to be young teenagers. We all know how difficult teenagers can be. And so I'm not saying that that's a red flag, but we need to trust our instincts. And so many times in nonprofits and in churches and youth sports, things like that, we don't want to be the ones who question someone, because if we're wrong, we've now given them the scarlet letter, right? But generally, we're not wrong. If it doesn't, if it smells like a skunk, it's a skunk every time. And so there's ways to go about that and stuff, but trust your instincts and pay attention to things. That's what I'm saying. So is it every soccer coach? Is it every, clergy? No, it's not. But know that sexual predators target organizations. The church doors are unlocked. They're open to everyone to come in. We want people to come to Christ. Unfortunately, there's other people along the way that's not what they want, and they see an opportunity to victimize. And so we need to be cognizant of that. It doesn't mean that we have to develop this paranoia, this atmosphere of everybody gets looked at as if they're going to commit a crime or they're criminals or any of that kind of stuff. It starts with the foundation of any organization, that you establish a culture that the most valuable thing that we have is our children, is our organization, is our duty to God, to duty to the organization. I've seen so many organizations that resisted doing any kind of background checks. Does a background check, is it the end all? Is it everything you need? No, it's not. It's a tool in your toolbox of things. It starts with the culture. These are the things that we always do, and that becomes normal. And then for those people that are in a position of power and authority and trust, we background check them. So we do that in the state of California. We do that with fingerprints because fingerprints never lie. Unfortunately, people sometimes, because we're human beings, they're untruthful, and maybe they come to our organization, and it's so hard to find volunteers, especially now add COVID on top of it, right? You can't get people to volunteer. There's all these restrictions, and we know how hard it is to retain volunteers. And so it's a perfect environment for those who want to prey upon our youth because we're all looking for volunteers. We want to get someone to help because we're all overwhelmed with that process. So maybe we overlook something, or maybe we were a little bit too quick to trust. But if we have this culture, this handbook, this is what we do every single time, then it removes that we're picking on someone, or we're labeling someone that doesn't need to be labeled. And so that's what I tell organizations is start building that foundation, and it becomes the normal. Unfortunately, sex offenders and people who want to embezzle churches' funds or youth sports, we read about it all the time. They don't wear a special hat. They don't wear a t-shirt. They don't have some kind of mark on their forehead. They look like all of us.
I really like what you said. The problem is not overwhelming in the sense of numbers. No one needs to be paranoid, but one case is too many cases. And that is so right, especially if it's your case
Right.
and the burden that that church or organization has to bear because of what happened. Let me ask you, however, about the opposite reaction. It seems, as you view these things over the years, that a common denominator in many organizations, churches and nonprofits, especially where you want to see the good in everyone and you want to believe the best about everyone, this idea that, oh, that could never happen here. That only happens in fill in the blank. Is that a significant barrier? And what can churches do about it without being paranoid?
I always say that people who are attracted to young kids and things like that sexually, they're wired incorrectly. There's something that has gone wrong. We look at this, and we never want to, especially in churches and things, we never want to look at the bad in anybody. And really, you have an obligation that once you identify that this person is wired incorrectly, I believe as a Christian, it's my responsibility to help them succeed in life, that they don't victimize another person, but they also, come to the Lord and be a part of society in a helpful way. And again, you don't make them in charge of your children's ministry or put them as a coach in some youth sport, but maybe they're the person who does this kind of adult counseling, or maybe they're in a mentor with a pastor or someone where they have value, because they're also, some of the best bank robbers, or safe crackers, or whatever you want to say. Law enforcement has learned from them through their expertise because they don't know. But again, I'm going to protect my children and those who can't protect themselves at all costs.
Jeff, I really like your approach. You don't divide the world into uh, good people and evil people. The idea here and the goal is that churches and nonprofits need to rise to the occasion and realize their responsibility to shepherd and care for and protect children, youth, anyone who might be vulnerable among them. But for the person who is inclined to sexual misconduct, our goal isn't to cast them into outer darkness, but to keep them from situations where they can cause harm to others and also to themselves. So it's not that we want to erase them. We want to put them in a situation where they can be on a path towards increasing level of success in their lives, while at the same time protecting children. So that's a very balanced and healthy perspective, and I don't see it often. Let me ask you this. You've done a really good job here of laying out the nature, the scope, the severity of the problem. Your business, Capital Live Scan, was created to be part of the solution. Tell us what you do in a practical matter to help churches and nonprofits.
So, um, the biggest key is to be able to identify those people that shouldn't be placed in those positions of power and authority and trust. There's two different ways to check someone's background. There's what's called a public database. And what you do is you go through different organizations, you enter in the date of birth, the social security number, the first and last and middle name of someone, and they run through public databases. The problem with public databases is it's kind of garbage in, garbage out. There's no way to validate the information because you don't see a picture of it. Social security numbers and not really identity theft is rampant in the world we live in. And so it's almost, a social security number is almost useless anymore because it's been compromised. I'll guarantee it. It's just for most of us, it hasn't been used fraudulently yet, but it's going to happen, Fingerprints never lie. And I wanted to make sure if I'm going to tell people to do something, that the data they get, the information they get is verified and valuable. And so that to me was fingerprinting. I had done that as a police officer, and so it was an easy transition. In California, it's a right to know state, so not everybody can get true criminal history. And so we were able to facilitate that where we'll go on site to a church. Let me step back just a second. The process to get approved to be able to see criminal history, like anything, it's a little labor intensive because you're getting true criminal history. Not everybody should have access to that. I don't want everybody to have access to that. So at one time, the application was 27 pages, and I would always comment, why is it a punishment to do the right thing? Why are they discouraging people who are just trying to protect those who can't protect themselves? And so that's when I first kind of got into this saying, you know what, I'm going to start here because, most organizations they have a volunteer that does certain things, or they have someone who does this and 50 other things. And now they pick up this thing and it's 27 pages that you've got to write, and it's written in such a manner that the first two times I read it, I wasn't able to stay awake and I was confused. And I'm a reasonably intelligent human being. So I thought, you know what, I need to help with this. And so I learned that process. And so we help churches or nonprofits from the very beginning, and we continue to help them through the whole process, how to manage, how if the information they get back they don't understand, we're here to help them with all the approval, all that stuff. And honestly, it sounds a little utopian, but honestly, if I didn't make $1 out of it, and an organization went through this process, got approved, adapted their culture to saying we care and we're going to protect this and the organization, I'm a happy guy. I've done my job. Obviously I'm in the business to make money and I want to make money, but I'm also in the business because I've looked in the eyes of a victim, and if I can stop one, I've had a great day. And so that's what we're about, is start to finish. We don't let you go. We make sure you get there. And then once you get to that level where we start fingerprinting, we've even made that easier where we'll come on site, or we have locations all over the state that we can facilitate those things. So now again, it's not a punishment to do the right thing, because volunteers don't want to be punished while they're being volunteering, right? I know the feeling, oh, I got to do this, and now you want me to give up my fingerprints and go through this process. So So we've tried to take this approach like a holistic approach.
It sounds like a couple of things that you're helping churches and nonprofits with. One is they on a right to know basis, they can access data about members, volunteers, potential members. And so you can help them navigate that process. But then you're also fingerprinting volunteers and others. How does that help churches and fingerprinting people who aren't like in a criminal database?
So what's nice about the state of California is so you fingerprint me, I'm going to be a part of your organization, I'm going to volunteer, do whatever. So I have no criminal history. So it comes back, I have no criminal history. You put me in a position and I can do everything. Let's say a year from now, I'm still part of your organization. I go out and I fall off the rails of decency and I commit some crime. Your organization is notified for free by the Department of Justice that now Jeff has committed a crime. Now, does it disqualify me? No, because I haven't been convicted of it. I've been arrested for it. But now do you put me in a position where I don't have access to X, whether it's money or children or whatever the case may be? Now you help me through that process. And especially in a church environment, hopefully I'm coming to you saying, hey, I've fallen off the rails of decency. Help me here. Help me, through this journey I've taken and come out. And that's really what you want to do. So now I've protected the organization and those who are in it. And hopefully I'm getting some assistance from that organization to be successful on the way out.
Fingerprints really are the gold standard in terms of identity. However, if you have someone's fingerprint in a database, does that mean as an organization you can sit back and relax because you've taken care of the screening?
So, again, everything is a tool, right? One thing doesn't resolve, it doesn't eliminate your need to be cautious throughout the thing. And that's why I talk so much about culture, right? Is you're establishing a culture of this is what's important to our organization. It is the safety of the, those who can't protect themselves. And so, I could be in the database for, I was convicted of armed robbery. I served my time in prison and I've come out. So I'm in that database saying this is who I am. Does it disqualify me for being in your organization? Maybe or maybe not. Those are individual organizational choices that you make. But again, knowledge is the key here.
Yes, Jeff. So for example, someone could already have their fingerprint in the system and appear in terms of formal paperwork and scanning designations clean as a whistle. Yet the fact of the matter is they just haven't been caught yet.
Correct.
How do organizations mitigate for individuals who are the unknown number of individuals who are in that category?
It falls back to that culture, right? If I do all these things, because the days of doing nothing are over, and for a couple of reasons. They always say ignorance is no excuse for breaking the law, right? Just because you didn't know. Well, we all know that there are sexual predators out there. So again, the days of saying, no, I know everybody in my congregation. I know everybody who's a coach in my youth sports. That doesn't work because there are people, just like you said, who are sexual predators, but they have not been caught. And unfortunately, when they do get caught, you see that they have multiple victims potentially, and again, it destroys multiple families and organizations and all that. But there's so many simple little things that you can do. I always tell people in organizations, don't ever have a post-pubescent male be in charge of prepubescent kids. And so there's those simple things. Am I going to let some coach, some youth minister take my 17-year-old daughter to camp or to this soccer thing or to this baseball thing or whatever by themselves? Am I going to let them develop any kind of a relationship? Should they be texting? Should they be Instagramming? Should they Facebook? Any of that stuff? No, because there's impulse problems, there's judgment issues, there's all sorts of things that go on there. So I'm going to put in some basic things, not because I think every human being has deviant behaviors, but I'm going to make sure that I lessen the ability to make a mistake where I can. That's how you're successful. And when you make that part of your culture of your organization, you're 100 times more successful. And you've shown, I hate to go into the liability factor of this, but you've shown that you've done reasonable things to try to prevent sexual misconduct in your organization. And and it helps the victim and it helps the organization, because the last thing you want to be doing is sitting in a chair in front of 12 jurors and a judge and explaining why this occurred and you did nothing because you felt uncomfortable, or you felt that no, you wouldn't have walked in the doors of this church if you were a bad person, or you wouldn't have volunteered for this youth organization if you didn't have all good thoughts. It doesn't work that way.
Setting up and creating a culture of accountability and a culture of protection, first and foremost, it is the right thing to do before God, before people, before uh, someone becomes a victim, before parents. But in doing that, also, since we live in a society of laws, a civil society, that also puts you in a position, God forbid, if something happens, or even if an allegation is made, something doesn't have to be true for you to end up in court, that you have can show yourself to have been diligent, of course, before God, before people, but also before the court system.
Right. I tell people one of the hardest things you can ever do is do nothing and then have to look at yourself in the mirror every morning. When you could have done something, it's not heroic, it's just reasonable. Just to do those things and know that you've done everything you can is such a gift to yourself and the people around you. Again, I've sat there and interviewed people who would in a second change history, but we can't. If they would have just come forward because it didn't feel right, or if they would have just put this policy, or if they would have just put a piece of glass in the door at the nursery at church so that when someone walks by, they can look in. Something simple as that, or an open door policy, or two people always go to the same, simple little basic things that aren't financially damaging to an organization. Just those simple things to avoid that. I hope every day is boring, but it's not that way. And so we have to be diligent. We are God's steward of the greatest gift that we've all gotten in some fashion, and that's our youth and people who can't take care of themselves. And
Jeff, you're in California. It
correct.
sounds like, to paraphrase, quote another California, trust but verify, which was, of course, something that Ronald Reagan said in reference to the Soviet Union in terms of nuclear disarmament. And so, trust but verify is the idea going forward. Now, Jeff, you serve through the live scan process, you serve officially and exclusively the state of California. But are you available to consult, or if consult is too strong of a word, take a phone call from people in other states who are trying to develop a safe and secure uh, ministry or organization in terms of the way it deals with children, young adults, anybody who might be vulnerable?
Absolutely. So yes, I'm happy to do it. Years ago, we put together a kind of a sexual misconduct uh, booklet to some common sense things. It doesn't fit every organization, but there's bits and pieces. And and again, we kind of teamed with Ministry Pacific over that process. And I give that thing, if someone sends me an email, I send it to them. You know, there's enough things out there that want to take your money. I just want you to try to do the right thing. And again, like I said, it shouldn't be a punishment to do that. So yeah, I'm happy to help.
And I want to share just one quick vignette in regards to the insurance side from Ministry Pacific, and then I'm going to give Jeff the last word. And we definitely appreciate Jeff Schweig sharing his time with us today. From an insurance perspective, Ministry Pacific creates insurance plans for churches and nonprofits. You want to do what Jeff is saying, first and foremost, because it's the right thing to do, creating a culture of safety, doing all of the background checking and screening that you can possibly do. But in the event that something horrific happens, that either there is sexual misconduct or even an accusation of sexual misconduct, that is where liability insurance comes into play and will provide the funding for a church's legal defense. So that we want to see, of course, the right thing done in the justice system. Every party in a suit has a right to a defense. And again, you don't have to have done anything wrong to be sued in the United States. So we hope you never have to use your insurance that's geared towards defending you from sexual misconduct charges. But in the event that you do, you can know that that coverage is provided. But first and foremost, do the things that Jeff is saying here so that you never have to file a claim for something like that. And Jeff, we want to thank you for joining us today and the good work that you're doing. I want to give you the last word. Anything that churches and nonprofits or concerned people need to know to help create and maintain a culture of safety and a culture of protection.
There is so many insurance companies or so many different things that don't look at prevention. They're there to sell you a product, one that you need, and no doubt about it, but that's it. And they don't try to do any of the other things to help you prevent the problem. The goal is to never need your insurance. That's the goal. And that's one of the reasons why I love Ministry Pacific and work with them closely. And from my standpoint, my last word is I am a resource. Am I your only resource? No. But again, I always say it's not who you know, it's who I know. So if there's something that you have that you don't know and I don't know, you know what? I'll figure it out. I'll find out who does. And so I appreciate the gift of this. And again, if you never see me again, never talk to me again or anything, take the effort, do the right thing, protect my kids, your kids, strangers' kids, protect those who can't protect themselves. And that's the gift you're going to pass on.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for sharing your time here today. And we encourage you, if this has sparked curiosity, interest, revealed some needs to you in your organization, contact Jeff. If we can help you on the insurance side of things, contact us both. Thank you so much.